Hey everybody, it's Ben, and today on the Urbstead, we are going to be taking these logs, which have been resting for a few weeks, and we are going to be inoculating them with mushrooms, specifically shiitake mushrooms. I was able to purchase this shiitake spawn plugs from a company named North Spore, and we're going to give this a try. I actually am not hugely interested in mushrooms, but I do love the flavor of mushrooms, especially when they're cooked really well. My wife loves to cook mushrooms. And so we thought it would be one more thing that we could add to the list of skills in terms of, I don't know, making our own food, having our own sense of food security and being able to make our own food decisions with whatever kind of food we would like. So we're adding one more thing to the list, that's mushrooms. These are going to be in the shape of wooden plugs. So I'm going to run through with a drill bit and drill a whole bunch of holes in all these logs, and then we're going to fill them with these plugs, and in the end we're going to cover those plugs with wax using the leftover beeswax that we actually harvested this year from our own beehive. It's going to be an experiment because this is the first time I have ever been a mushroom grower or mycologist. I'm definitely not a mycologist. Amateur for sure. So take that for what it is. But we're going to give it a shot. I would really love to be able to add another notch to our belt in terms of being able to grow our own food and add one more thing to the skills list in terms of homesteading and self-sufficiency. Come along and see how it goes. And who knows, maybe you'll get interested or the bug will get you on growing your own mushrooms. Okay, so we need a plan. Does Ben have a plan? No. Is that normal? Yes. First, let me get a coat. Okay, that's better. Okay, so the general gist of it is that we're going to be taking a log, each of these logs, and we are going to be filling the log with holes. Filling the log. We're going to be making a ton of holes in these logs to populate with wooden dowels that have already been inoculated with a mushroom spawn into the wood itself. So when we plug those holes with the inoculated dowel rods, when we plug those holes with these inoculated dowels, as you can see, they're real funky looking. All those little bits and bobs in there are some grains, some kind of millet that the mushroom spawn was grown on, and then they bagged it up with these dowel rods here so that the dowel rods themselves would also then be infested by that mushroom spawn. It might look like it's molding, but really that's just the mycelium. So what we want to do is we want to get that stuff in these. And these are nice and fresh. And I think once these are all filled up with as much as, well, I'm going to try and evenly space them over all the logs we have. What we'll do is we will seal them with wax, probably seal the ends as well to keep as much moisture in the logs as possible. And then it's like a 9 to 12 month growing period where these are going to be stacked over on the tree line next to our house. And hopefully this time next year or, fall of next year, we'll get some shiitakes. All right, so let's get into it. We'll start out by doing an example piece. We're going to drill a whole bunch of holes. So I have 500 plugs. And if I remember correctly, some quick math, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's 14, 15. We're going to call it 16 logs. That's just over 30 holes per log. Now, I've heard differing opinions. The recommendation from North Spore was to put about 50 in each log, but on the whole, most of my logs are slightly smaller than what they're recommending as well. That's fine. I know that the recommendation is based on the speed of infestation. The more plugs that we have in a log, the faster that log is then going to become sort of fully infested with the mycelium. I guess I don't really know what the specific term is, which is fine. I'm amateur, remember that. But what I know is that if I do a little bit less it won't be as big of a deal. The fact that these are smaller logs only means that we will have less years of shiitake mushroom harvesting before these are totally decomposed. So by the end of the process, when they're totally done fruiting, I should be able to go over and just pick these logs apart. They'll be so broken down on the inside. 30 holes going in this log right now. This is a 5/16 drill, and I'm going in a total of just over 1 inch. It's about 17/16. I'm going to rotate it a little bit, and then I will go diagonal to the holes that I made previously.
One eternity later.
I got all the logs drilled, and now we're going to take some of this take some of these plugs, and we are going to try and fill up all the holes that I made in all of these logs. I have a hammer, I have the spawn, plugs, and we're just going to go at it. You might not have caught it in time lapse, but for these really large logs, in these comparatively larger logs, I put a lot more holes, and I think it's pretty obvious. I got closer to 50 because these are the kind of the size logs in terms of diameter that they actually recommend using. So more holes in bigger logs, less holes in smaller logs. Hopefully it all kind of flushes out in the end. This is pretty gross. Mushroom spawn. It's not actually gross. It just looks kind of funky because it's new. Serious whacking. All right, I think this is going well. All right, now that I have all the plugs spawned in for this one, I'm going to be jumping ahead to show you the wax covering process. Now, they usually use this thing called a dauber, which is like this really cottony, nice little cotton ball on the end of a metal stick that is really quick and easy. I don't have one of those, so I'm going to be using a kind of nasty paintbrush and just going to try and wing it. That's all we have, so we're going to use what we have. I'm going to go through and I'm going to cover up each of the spots, as well as cover up any of the big kind of open faces or cracks where there's no more bark. And then once that is finished, that log itself will be done and ready to just sit by itself forever. This log will be done ready to sit over in the shady spot. So I don't know. We didn't have the dauber and we didn't have the angle grinder, which they also recommend for drilling the holes. But I'd say on the whole, using what we have, the paintbrush kind of worked out well, and everything's waxed up. This log is now kind of set and done for the year. Now, that took me for one log here, that took me all of probably 10 minutes from start to finish, and that one log should last me, especially this big one, should last me about 6 years, and I should get about one flush a year where I'm getting quite a few mushrooms. Now, you could say, you could just go buy mushrooms for pretty cheap, or you're gonna need way more mushrooms. And both of those are true, yes. But say that you wanted to really get into this, and like I have 15 logs, and I'm going to make a small stack that you will see eventually, and that small stack will probably produce us quite a bit of mushrooms. I mean, maybe enough for a month. But the reality is, I could have more stacks, and if this only took me 10 minutes, if I put in maybe 3 hours a year where I'm building these stacks more and more and more, and I take up a little bit more space in our yard or just along the tree line over on the other side of our yard, you can kind of see how this is going to start to build a resource that is semi-sustainable. All we would have to do is get more fresh cut maple logs, which that's easy to come by, and getting more spawn, which is also easy to come by, to create for ourselves a not endless, but maybe near endless supply of mushrooms. What would we do with them? Well, if we get too many at one time, we would probably dry a lot of them. They dry really well, and they can get reconstituted or turned into a powder and add that nice umami kick to any dish that you want. But I'll leave you with this: creating another source of self-sustainability in the form of mushrooms. We're going to try another kind of mushroom here later, but it's a little bit more picky, and I found out that it is a mushroom that is not for beginners. Well, we're going to swing for the fences and see what happens. If nothing else, I know that shiitake is a beginner mushroom, and I'm excited to see how this turns out in the next year. Of course, it's going to be a while until we find out the results. That's okay. We're not really out that much, and the time that it took for me to do this is really nothing. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, please leave us a comment. If you're interested in your own mushroom adventure, please visit northspore.com. This is not sponsored by any means. They probably don't even know I exist, but I found their website extremely helpful and useful in this mushroom growing journey. So check them out. I'll leave a link down in the description for their store. And yeah, thanks for coming by. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, grow on.